and welcome to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific right here on GameSpot.com. I'm your host, Danny Dwyer, fresh back from Germany, full of pork knuckle, Weiss beer, and God knows what else. And I'm joined by Alex Newhouse.
Hey, Danny.
You're only with us for another week, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Intern, another summer. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Could fuck it up right now, though, so we'll see. Erick Tay.
What up?
How you doing?
Doing all right.
Sweet
Welcome
shirt.
back. Oh, thanks.
You always wear a nice shirt when you're going to be on the lobby.
I have to now. You know, it's trying to step up the game in the office here. We got to get a little bit, slightly more professional.
It makes me look
business
bad.
Cash.
I stepped on my game to match you a little bit.
Oh,
Look great.
Yeah.
This is the only piece of clothing I have that's washed after spending a week in Europe. So that's why I'm wearing that one.
Glad you're clean.
You two are here, which means we're talking about one particular game.
Can only be that game.
Yeah, last time we guys had you on, we had a great chat about Destiny. Now we're going to have another one. The Taken King is out in just a couple of weeks. September, right around the corner. Not only is it bringing, obviously, a bunch more content for the low price of $40, but on the day of release, there's also going to be a patch coming out for all Destiny players. It's going to change up a bunch of stuff. Let's talk about that first. So the first thing we know is that Dinklebot's out and Nolan North's in. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's great. Like Peter Dinklage is a good actor. Wasn't great in Destiny, and for them to get Nolan North, someone who's tried and true in video games, like that just seems like a good move for them. They're going back and completely scrapping Dinklage from the entire game, going back and replacing every single line that the Ghost says with Nolan North. It's a little aggressive.
Rewriting history.
Yeah, it's a little aggressive. Kind of feel bad for Dinklage, but at the same time, it makes sense, and I feel like Nolan North will do a better job. Okay,
another big change. Light is being completely scrapped in terms of, well, it's not being scrapped, but in terms of XP progression, past level 20, just like pre-level 20, your XP will be gotten directly from quests, sort of in line with most other MMOE type character level online games. Tay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think, looking back at, original Destiny and thinking of just how light level worked, it was kind of a little bit confusing at first. It's like, oh, I kind of hit max level, but it's not really max level because gear takes me to this higher level. So now you're, like you said, it's going back to a traditional kind of style where it's all experience based and all the armor and weapons you get will just make you a stronger Guardian. So it's like, as you progress through the game, it's like, okay, I got raid tier armor that has 100 or 300 more armor than my last armor. It's easier to understand. And I think the interesting thing too, coming out of that for me is this kind of gonna start this whole thing with Trials of Osiris, which is their new kind of PvP mode, with what WoW did, which is like, now we can balance for PvP and for PvE because we can give special stats to PvP and like, here's different gear that's like specifically for PvP. That's what I'm kind of interested about. They haven't talked about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that.
Is there any more little changes? I know like you won't have to go back to the tower as much with bounties and quests and whatnot. Is there anything else they're doing that's kind of jumped out to you, or are they the two main ones with that update specifically?
I mean, I think like the HUD overhaul is incredibly important as well because it's just like they're making it so that you can track the progress in your quests and your bounties on the HUD itself, which is huge. Like you don't have to, pop up the menu during play sessions and stuff. Not having to go back to the tower is also really essential. But really, the light level overhaul is probably the biggest change that they're making to this.
You two are big fans of Destiny. I'm going to throw this little devil's advocate thing out there. It's great. Like it's like I always, my WoW is a big sort of like touchstone for me with this sort of stuff. Whenever a big expansion pack comes out, they always launch a sort of a big patch around that time as well where they kind of update a bunch of stuff for everybody else. Isn't the fact that they're going back and like rewriting the main story character in this game, and isn't the fact that they're like getting rid of this pretty like fundamental aspect of their progression, doesn't that sort of mostly show you that the game they made last year wasn't that good? Like they're changing fundamental parts of the game.
Okay, so you're mostly right. I mean, a lot of people on the internet have been saying, "Oh, we just went through Destiny beta, like true beta, and now like now we're getting to the point where it's like real Destiny."
That was a real expensive beta.
Sure, but the thing is, it's like a lot of games now. Just again, we'll talk trends. It's like it's an evolving system, right? Like, yeah, maybe the Destiny that we got originally wasn't as good as it's gonna be now because, like, a lot of games iterate on quality of life stuff, and that's really what Destiny did, right? They found a lot of the quality of life stuff, and they kind of upped the game on that and made it better. And then,
what do you mean by quality of life? For those
like, for example, not only did the light level kind of get easier to understand, but they figured out, okay, like factions, you used to have to wear a special piece of armor, turn it in to get your rep. Now it's no, you don't have to wear that. You just pledge yourself to a faction.
Right.
Or There used to be Crucible marks and Vanguard marks. There used to be separate things that you could earn, and you would get capped each week. Guess what? It's all lumped into one now. Like, so there's a lot of these kind of like minute changes that isn't that big of a deal, but like for a player like me that's been playing, it's like, oh, I wish I had that in the beginning. So it's like anyone that starts now, they won't understand some of the trials and tribulations that we went through. And to get back to your story thing, they are trying to deal with that a little bit. Part of it is with the rewriting of Dinklage and we bring in Nolan North, but you will be able to like scan more objects in the world now that will give you more like lore behind it. They said it's not necessarily like the Grimoire cards. That still isn't in the game, which is mind-boggling because there's so much deep, rich lore in the Grimoire
and it sounds
cards.
like and it sounds like they're actually worth reading. So it's kind of strange that they still haven't
Exactly.
put
The
them
best
in
story
yet.
stuff is in the Grimoire cards. It's crazy.
So they are trying to give you those at least nuggets where in the past where you just walk by like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Now it's like you might be able to scan a dead body, you might be able to scan like a structure, and you'll get like little snippets from either Nolan North himself or I think Eris Morn, like it'll tap back to like the tower, like it'll have this radio interaction of like, oh, so what the hell is this kind of thing? Like now you can maybe do that more often.
Sort of
than
tightening
before.
up some of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty important. Getting onto the Taken King, $40. It's their big expansion. Obviously, we've had a bunch of them around the price of $20, which is kind of a price point people still aren't really sure what they're getting for. $40 is more in line with the sort of what we expect of most expansion packs, most MMO packs and stuff like that. Alex, first of all, as a fan of Destiny, you've been playing it for a bunch, but you're also like, you've been very critical, as Tay has, but probably more so critical of some of the expansion packs. What do you think about the Taken King in terms of its value prospect?
So I've actually been surprised by what they've been saying about it because, last time I was on here, I talked about how predatory the pricing of, Destiny has been.
Yeah.
But what they seem like, all of their rhetoric around the Taken King has sounded in a lot of ways very humble. Like they're acknowledging the fact that the light level system was sort of broken and it brought players down the wrong lines. They're acknowledging the fact that some of their weapons have been unbalanced and they made a game in which everyone uses the Gallarhorn.
Yes.
And they say that isn't a good thing. They want to encourage people to experience the entire breadth of it. And so what they're doing with the Taken King, when they talk about it, they make it clear like they are going back to the story and making the story campaign something that people actually want to play.
It's going to be like twice as long as what they've added in House of Wolves, I'm hearing.
That's what they say.
We'll see.
I mean, like they have been saying that, like they are putting a significant amount of story content in there, which, to be fair, that isn't saying much relative to the rest of Destiny, but they are adding, far more cinematics in. Both Dark Below and House of Wolves had one at the intro.
Right.
This one is going to have more between each mission. They've got this whole, everything they talk about the end game after you finish the story, they haven't even discussed the details of that yet, but they keep talking about it as this huge, expansive, pretty new thing that they're doing after you get out of the story campaign. So from what they've been talking about, I'm actually really hopeful that this will be worth $40.
Like, both of you played the game a bunch. You obviously love it a lot. Tay, how important is this expansion pack to you as a fan of Destiny to keep you hooked in? Because obviously, getting certain piecemeal quests and an odd Crucible map in the old expansion packs, does this need to be a sort of a larger amount of content to keep you engaged?
This one's gonna be a big test for me because it's like I still like Destiny. I still like playing it a lot, but I've dwindled. Whatever that is for me, that's probably doesn't compare to anyone else. But for me, right? So as one of the hardcore players, right? This one's gonna tell me a lot of am I gonna keep playing or am I gonna play a lot less, and am I gonna continue to lose friends after this one if this one doesn't deliver, But they are adding a lot of stuff, so now it just comes down to really let's play it. Let me see if I feel like it's worth the $40. But I will say this is gonna be whatever, but it is a good. I think if you haven't played Destiny, this is a very good value.
There's never been a better time to get hooked on.
Honestly though, I wish, in some ways, I almost wish I was able to get all of that stuff now for $60 and understand why we have to kill Atheon. I didn't understand why we had to kill Atheon the first time because I don't read the Grimoire cards because it's not in the game.
Yeah.
But now you'll know why. So, yeah.
Do you expect to play through the story mission and be left on a massive cliffhanger, Alex Newhouse?
I really hope not. I really hope this is going to lead directly into the rest of the game, directly into the King's Fall raid. And what they've also been saying, they're going back and reworking all the bounties from the previous, the base game and the previous expansions to make those tie in more. They're really trying to make it all tie together. At least they're talking about it like that. like they are, which sounds really promising to me.
All right, gentlemen, we've had you on talk about Destiny a bunch. Thank you so much again for coming on. Last question. We gave Destiny 6 out of 10?
Yes.
Is that right? 6 out of 10?
6 out of 10.
Erick Tay, Alex Newhouse, give me your score for Destiny after year 1 based on your own experiences. Erick, out of 10.
We're doing this based on GameSpot, right? So no halves, right?
No
So just
halves,
pure,
no halves.
okay.
No. 10-point scale, man. No zeros either.
I think it's still a 7. I think it.
Yeah?
I always thought it was a 7. I still think it is, but I can also see why people might think it's a 6. But for me, 7.
All right, Alex, what you got?
I go back and forth. When
4 or 5. So close.
When I was deep into like House of Wolves, I was like, this is an 8 or a 9. Like I was loving it. But now that I'm back, now that I've heard what they're doing and stuff, I'm sitting around at 7.
7, all right. It's going to be interesting. I hear word around the office that we might be doing a re-review after a year. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that's the case or not. Tay's shaking his head. I don't know if that means
False.
no or don't do it.
There will be probably a Taken King review.
Okay, yeah, we'll
There'll
see.
probably be a
We'll see soon enough.